No one saw this coming. Not the fans, not the media, not even the people closest to him. But today, the silence shattered. Standing in front of flashing cameras, her hands trembling, her eyes swollen from days of tears, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's wife held up something small but devastating. A battered USB drive. One that had been sitting in a safe, untouched for months, maybe even years. And then, with a voice cracked by grief and fury, she whispered just 3 words. He didn't drown. She didn't wait for questions. She didn't allow interruptions. She simply pressed play. And what the world heard next was not a tribute. It wasn't a home video or a farewell message. It was something far more terrifying. It was a warning from Malcolm himself. If you're watching this, his voice trembled through the speakers. Something happened to me. He looked exhausted, haunted, like a man carrying a secret he could no longer bear. He spoke of being followed, of threats, of truths too dangerous to stay buried. And then he said it. If they say I drowned, don't believe it. I've been swimming since I was 5. Hours after that video was recorded, he was gone, reported as a freak accident, filed, forgotten, buried. Until now, because this USB changes everything. And what happens next may destroy everything we thought we knew about Malcolm-Jamal Warner, his death, and the legacy of the show that made him famous. The room is dim. The camera angle is shaky. Malcolm-Jamal Warner sits in what looks like a hotel room, shoulders slumped, face pale, eyes scanning the door behind him like he's waiting for someone to break it down. This isn't a celebrity message. This is a man unraveling. If you're watching this, he says again, his voice quieter now, it means I didn't make it. He pauses, exhales, then stares directly into the lens. This is not an accident. He goes on to describe things most of us could never imagine. People watching him, approaching him at airports, threatening him anonymously through burner phones and untraceable messages. He doesn't name names, not yet, but it's clear he's terrified. They know what I saw. They know I didn't forget. His hands tremble. He rubs his forehead. The exhaustion on his face is something you don't act. It's something you live with. I can't carry it anymore, he says. But if they silence me, at least this lives on. And then, the line that stopped everyone cold. If they say I drowned, don't believe it. His voice cracks. I've been swimming since I was 5. I'd never leave my daughter. Not like that. Not without saying goodbye. The footage cuts abruptly. No ending, no resolution. Just silence. And that silence echoed through every living room, every newsroom, and every corner of the internet. Because this wasn't just a message. It was a cry for help. One no one heard in time. But what the world didn't know then was that this video wasn't the only thing Malcolm left behind, and what surfaced next would shake the entire industry. It didn't take long. Within minutes of the press conference ending, clips of Malcolm's final message were flooding every social platform. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. It spread like fire across dry brush, unstoppable and burning with one unified message. He didn't drown. The hashtag Justice for Malcolm exploded globally. Tens of thousands of posts, millions of views. People dissecting every word, every frame, every breath in that chilling video. And then came the theories. Some called it a cover-up. Others said it was part of a much bigger machine. But one thing everyone agreed on, this wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a red flag we all ignored. Old interviews started resurfacing. Fans dug deep enough to find a podcast Malcolm had appeared on just weeks before his death. In the episode, Malcolm had been his usual self-calm, thoughtful, a little guarded. But then the host asked a simple question. Do you ever regret anything from your time on The Cosby Show? That's when everything changed. Malcolm paused for what felt like a lifetime. His smile faded. His voice got quiet. "Some things," he said slowly, "you can't forget. You can forgive, maybe, but not forget." He looked off camera. His face shifted. And in hindsight, it wasn't just a thoughtful moment. It was a warning. One we didn't recognize until it was too late. Fans began posting side-by-side clips Malcolm smiling on screen in the 90s. And Malcolm in his final months, thinner, quieter, eyes distant. "We missed the signs," one comment read. "He was telling us, and we didn't listen," wrote another. Even other celebrities began speaking out. Raven Simone posted a story with no caption. Just a black screen and the words, "Not all justice is legal. Some of it is spiritual, and it's coming." Kashia Knight Pulliam disabled comments on all her social media accounts. No statement, no denial, just silence. But the most surprising reaction came from Regina King, Malcolm's longtime friend and former partner. She posted a single photo, a blurry snapshot of her and Malcolm years ago. And one sentence, "The last time I saw him, he looked like he had something to say, but didn't." The dots were connecting. The pieces Malcolm tried to protect were finally falling into place. And what his wife revealed next would drag this story far beyond speculation and straight into the darkest corners of the entertainment world. While the internet was catching fire, Malcolm's wife was quietly recounting something far more chilling: what life with him had really been like in those final months. She said he stopped sleeping. He installed cameras in every corner of their home, inside and out. He changed phones every 3 months. He wouldn't answer unknown numbers, wouldn't eat out, wouldn't travel without double-checking every hotel, every exit. He said they were watching him, she whispered through tears. He said they wouldn't let him go. At first, she thought it was stress, Hollywood paranoia, the kind of tension that comes from growing up in the spotlight. But it got worse. He would wake up screaming, soaked in sweat, gripping the sheets like he was being dragged out of bed. Sometimes he wouldn't say anything for hours, just sit staring at the wall. And when he finally spoke, it was always the same thing: "They're coming." According to her, Malcolm refused to see anyone in the industry for therapy. He found a private counselor, someone off the grid, someone safe. And then one day, he came home and said the words that would change everything: "I'm ready to talk. I just don't know if I'll survive it." She begged him not to, told him to stay quiet, that it wasn't worth his life. But he couldn't hold it in anymore. "I can't die with this inside me," he told her. "If something happens, make sure they hear me." And that's when he recorded the footage, the same footage that would one day break the internet. But back then, it was just a man trying to leave a legacy of truth behind. Only she knew about it. Only she knew how afraid he was. And only she knew that it was never just about fear, that it was about what he knew. Because this wasn't just Malcolm's personal pain. It was part of something much bigger. And when industry insiders started talking, the nightmare suddenly didn't seem so paranoid after all. At first, it was just fans speculating, connecting dots, reading between the lines. But then, the industry started to crack. Anonymous insiders formed. Staffers from the Cosby Show began leaking information online. Most didn't reveal their names, but their stories? They all sounded the same. There were rooms we couldn't enter. If you asked the wrong question, you were gone the next day. We were told, protect the brand or lose your job. Then came a bombshell. A set of leaked documents allegedly obtained from deep inside Cosby Productions surfaced on Reddit, then spread like wildfire across the internet. They were dated 1992, the final year of the Cosby Show. Buried in the fine print was a name, reduced to just 3 letters, MJW. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, The file included a $250,000 payment, a non-disclosure agreement, and a clause labeled Special Silence Protection. Legal analysts called the language extremely unusual. One expert, Lev on air, didn't mince words. This reads like a payoff. Not a standard NDA, a bribe, plain and simple. The year matched. Malcolm would have been 22 just leaving the show, a time when he should have been preparing for his next big role, not signing contracts that sounded more like warnings than agreements. Suddenly, what seemed like paranoia now looked like strategy. Malcolm hadn't been afraid for no reason. He had been silenced, legally bound, cornered by a system designed to protect power, not people. And while some cast members were still silent, one voice broke through louder than anyone expected. Regina King. She didn't post a cryptic message this time. She sat down in a chair, looked straight into the camera, and told the truth. She didn't blink. She didn't look away. Regina King sat in a plain chair under harsh studio lights, her hands clasped in her lap, eyes heavy with something deeper than grief-guilt. "I don't know what he saw," she said softly, "but I know it haunted him." There was no script, no PR filter, just a woman speaking about someone she once loved, someone she still couldn't stop thinking about. "He left that show a different person," she continued. "We all changed, but Malcolm, something happened to him." She paused, her throat tightening. There were nights we'd sit on the couch and he'd just stare. For hours, silent, not angry, not upset, just gone. Like his mind had stepped outside his body and wasn't ready to come back. And then her voice cracked. "He told me once I was a kid, but they treated me like I was disposable." That line hit like a punch to the gut. Because this wasn't the charming Theo Huxtable America remembered. This was the real Malcolm, the one who never stopped carrying the weight of what happened behind the scenes. Regina didn't point fingers. She didn't name names. "But what?" she said next told the world everything it needed to know. He was protecting something, or someone. "I just didn't realize it might cost him his life." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she held them back. And in that moment, you could feel it. This wasn't an interview, Dot. It was a confession. And the world watched, stunned, Dot, because if Regina, someone who knew Malcolm better than most, was finally breaking her silence, it meant the walls around this story weren't just cracking. They were collapsing. And what they uncovered next would reveal the most disturbing missing pieces of all, Dot. The headline said it was an accident, a peaceful night, a walk by the water, a man alone slipping into the sea. But the evidence tells a very different story. Malcolm's wife had already shaken the world with the USB. But now she revealed something even more disturbing. His phone and personal journal were never recovered. Not from his hotel room, not from his luggage, not from the beach where they claimed he drowned. Dot gone, erased, like they'd never existed. Dot. And then came the resort's official statement. There were no surveillance cameras near the water that night. But that was a lie, because a former employee who chose to remain anonymous leaked a screenshot from the resort's internal security system. Right there, clear as day. Pool deck cam 2A, timestamped 1 hour before. Malcolm's body was discovered, but when investigators requested the footage, the resort claimed it had been automatically deleted. A system glitch, cyber forensics. Experts weren't buying it. High-end resorts like this use encrypted backups. Footage doesn't just vanish. It has to be manually erased. Someone wanted that night wiped clean. Dot, and still, the story might have stayed buried until someone found what the system missed. A cloud-synced voicemail. Time-stamped 3:12 a.m., just hours before Malcolm was found dead. Sent from his missing phone to one private contact, his off-the-grid therapist. And what he said: "I don't think I'm going to make it." His voice was shaking. "They followed me from LA. They know I'm trying to talk. They were outside the villa last night, watching, waiting." He paused, took a breath, and then said the words that would haunt everyone who heard them. "If I don't call back, tell my daughter I tried. I really tried." Click.end of message. No more recordings. No more sightings. Just a lifeless body? And 100 unanswered questions. At this point, the official story had completely unraveled. But what surfaced next didn't just challenge the narrative. It destroyed it. Because someone somehow had gotten their hands on the second half of that USB. And what was on it was worse than anyone imagined. It arrived in the dead of night. No announcement. No press release. Just a single anonymous post, uploaded to an encrypted server, then mirrored across Reddit, X, and Telegram within minutes. A new video file. Its title? Malcolm Warner Final Cut. It was the second half of the footage Malcolm's wife had mentioned. The part she had never released. The part she claimed might blow the entire story wide open. And within seconds of pressing play, viewers knew why. Malcolm sits in a hotel room, not the same one from before. This one is cleaner, but colder. You can hear the AC humming. He looks thinner now, paler. His voice is calm, but there's something in his eyes, something final. "There's more," he says. It wasn't just Cosby. It was bigger. He leans forward. Executives, agents, showrunners, people with everything to lose. They knew. They let it happen. I was a kid. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't even know what I was seeing. But now I do. He breathes in hard. I kept the secrets. I signed what they told me to sign. But I can't do it anymore. And then the camera shakes slightly, as if someone else is in the room. But Malcolm doesn't react. He just stares into the lens, like it's the last time he'll ever be seen. "If you're seeing this, I'm dead," he says. "And if they're trying to convince you I drowned, don't let them." He wipes his eyes, not crying cleansing, as if he knows he's finally free. "Tell my daughter I was trying to be a hero." And the video ends. No credits. No music, just silence. But that silence didn't last long, because within hours, protests were erupting in major cities. Billboards funded by fans went up in Times Square, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, each one with the same message in bold, white letters. He didn't drown. He was erased. Reddit threads exploded. TikTok timelines flooded with video breakdowns. And journalists from around the world started boarding flights to Costa Rica. Because if Malcolm was telling the truth, it meant the cover-up was deeper, wider, and far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. And it wasn't just fans listening. Anymore. His therapist, the last person to speak to him alive, came forward with a haunting confirmation. "Yes," she said. "The voicemail was real. The fear was real. He told me the past was catching up to him, and that they wouldn't let him go." And now, the world finally understood why. What began as a whispered warning was now a global reckoning. Within 48 hours of the leaked footage going viral, Hollywood went into lockdown. Networks quietly began pulling the Cosby Show reruns from their streaming platforms. Sponsorship deals once tied to the show's legacy gone, erased overnight. Cast members who had once celebrated the show's family. Values went silent, vanishing from press appearances and canceling interviews. Some locked their social media accounts. Others deleted entire timelines. But the public? They were just getting started. On TikTok, creators were building massive timelines, dissecting Malcolm's final months, analyzing inconsistencies, comparing his words in interviews from 2022. 2025. Lip readers began breaking down every frame of the second video. Reddit forums turned into full-blown investigative archives. And on Twitter now, X, the hashtags kept climbing. Hashtag who killed Malcolm, hashtag where's the footage, hashtag Cosby cover up. Then came the next shockwave. A former child actor, not from the Cosby Show, but from a different 90s family sitcom, posted a raw, unfiltered video. His voice shook. His eyes were red. We were all told to smile, to be good kids, to shut up. He paused. I watched Malcolm fight to keep his soul intact. I watched him try. But the industry, it eats people like him alive. And his final line? They called it a family show. But it wasn't a family. It was a trap. That video alone racked up 20 million views in 2 days. Meanwhile, Malcolm's wife had vanished from the public eye. Her legal team issued a chilling statement. Our client has received credible threats. She will not be making further comments until their safety can be guaranteed. Journalists tried to follow up. No response. But behind closed doors, sources claimed the family was preparing to take legal action, not just against the resort, but against multiple individuals named in Malcolm's private journals. Because now, people weren't just mourning a beloved actor. They were questioning an entire era of television, an entire system. And then, as if ripped from a script no one dared to write, another piece of the puzzle surfaced. One logbook entry from the Costa Rican resort the night Malcolm died. One name, listed under an alias. A former Cosby Show associate with no known reason to be in the country got when pressed. The resort said it was a clerical error. A coincidence. But Malcolm's wife had warned us. He told me to be careful of anyone connected to that show. He said they would do anything to keep the past buried. And now, it looked like they had. Only this time, they buried more than the truth. It was buried in paperwork. Just a single entry in a dusty resort logbook. But to those following the story, it felt like the missing link. A name partially redacted, listed under an alias. Date of arrival, the night before Malcolm died. Purpose of visit, private guest. Affiliation, none disclosed, but internet sleuths weren't fooled. They traced the alias back to one person, a former associate from the Cosby Show. Not a cast member, not a producer, someone on the periphery. Someone Malcolm had reportedly cut ties with years ago. Someone who had no reason to be at that resort in Costa Rica, unless they weren't there for pleasure. When journalists contacted the resort for comment, their story changed twice. First, that guest never existed. Then, it was a clerical error. And finally, we can't comment on private guest records. But it was too late. The damage was done. Because Malcolm's wife had said it days earlier, almost as a warning. He told me not to trust anyone connected to that show. He said some of them were still protecting Cosby, that they would do anything to keep the past buried. And now, it looked like she wasn't just grieving. She was right. Online investigators cross-referenced resort layouts, timestamps, and cell tower data. One Reddit thread broke it down in brutal detail. You're telling me he walked 300 feet, barefoot, in the dark, with no signs of distress, just to end up drowned in a section of the pool he never used? Come on. Drone footage surfaced showing the distance between Malcolm's villa and the pool deck. It wasn't close. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't logical. And one post summed it up best. You don't end up dead this far from your room by accident. You end up there because someone took you. By now, even mainstream outlets had stopped calling it a freak accident. They were using new words. Suspicious, under investigation, possibly targeted. And yet, the most terrifying part wasn't the missing footage, the planted name, or the altered reports. It was what still hadn't been released. Because according to Malcolm's wife, what we've seen, the video, the voicemail, the leaks, that was just the beginning. The rest of that USB? still locked away, still hidden, still waiting. And what's allegedly on it could change everything. So now we ask the question no one in power seems willing to answer. What really happened to Malcolm-Jamal Warner? Because this isn't just about a drowning anymore. This is about a man who knew he was running out of time. A father who left behind a digital will, a warning, a truth. He didn't vanish. He didn't leave a note. He left proof. A video that said, "If they say I drowned, don't believe it." A voicemail that said, "They're outside. They're watching." A legacy that said, "I want my daughter to know I tried to be a hero." They told us it was a peaceful vacation. They said it was a tragic accident. They claimed there was no foul play, no cameras, no witnesses. And yet, there's missing footage, a missing phone, a missing journal, and a name in the resort guest log that was never supposed to be there. So we have to ask, who stood to gain by silencing him? Was it one man protecting a legacy? Or an entire machine terrified of exposure? Because what we've seen is just the surface. The rest of the USB, the therapist's files, the testimonies waiting in the shadows. They're coming, and when they do, the world will have no choice but to face the truth. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't drown. He was silenced. He was hunted, and he left behind everything we needed to make sure they don't get away with it. So if you've made it this far, you're part of this now. Not just a viewer, not just a fan, a witness. Drop a comment, share your thoughts. Light up the algorithm with the hashtags they tried to bury. #JusticeForMalcolm.